Hey, amazing testimony up on Capitol Hill today. Donald Trump's pick to head up the CIA, Gina Haspel, testified for a good couple of hours, and I'm telling you, the Democrats mercilessly and unfairly raked her over the coals. To discuss this and some other topics, really pleased to be joined by Scott Uehlinger, retired CIA operations officer, retired commander, U.S. Naval Reserve, adjunct professor of intelligence and counterintelligence at New York University. Scott, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. And I'm also currently running for Congress in the 9th Pennsylvania Congressional District as well.
Oh, Scott, fantastic. I did not know that. Wonderful. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. Thank you and congratulations.
Thanks.
Gina Haspel testified today up on Capitol Hill, and the Democrats seemed obsessed over this issue of enhanced interrogation techniques.
That's right.
What was your take?
It was really, I commend the woman's patience, because I don't think I could have withstood that kind of a unfair grilling without having to say something nasty to somebody. You know, the Democrats have dwelled on this enhanced interrogation technique, a vestige of, the Bush years. But you have to remember that the enhanced interrogation technique, which they like to label torture, was used on only a very small handful of people. And in fact, something like waterboarding is actually standard procedure for our special forces to undergo when they undergo their training. So to say, for instance, waterboarding is torture is a little ridiculous if our own SEALs and Delta Force undergo that type of training as part of their acclimation.
And Scott, correct me and correct our audience. These enhanced interrogation techniques immediately in the aftermath of 9/11, we're talking about things that were by law legally okay to do, correct?
That's right. That's the key point. And the other thing the viewers have to understand is that the CIA is not a policy organ. It does not make policy. It carries out the policy that's ordered by the legislative or the executive branch. And so this is something I saw very much when I was in the CIA. Especially the Congress, is very good at instructing the CIA what to do behind closed doors. And then suddenly, when there's a public backlash, the Congress denies they ever told the CIA to do it and that it's some kind of rogue agency, when in fact they're only doing what they were instructed to do. Nancy Pelosi is a famous liar in this regard, as she swears up and down that she knew nothing about enhanced interrogation, and yet numerous senior and mid-level officers writing memoirs stated that they were in the room when she, in fact, instructed them to carry out enhanced interrogation.
Hey, so Scott, in your mind, what was going on today? I'll confess, I was bothered by the rehashing of this entire issue of torture. It was legal back then, been there, done that. Let's move on. Why are the Democrats so insistent upon bringing this back out?
It's just they're merely doing it for political theater, and that is what is extremely aggravating about it, because those techniques were abandoned a while ago. And so we're talking about something that was happening 10 years ago, and it's not germane to the discussion today, but it's just their chance to land a couple of cheap shots on a very professional woman who, although I did not work with her, is very highly regarded by my CIA colleagues.
Hey, Scott, your thoughts on what the president did yesterday, pulling us out of that Iran nuclear deal?
Right. I've been writing about this for quite some time, and let me be perfectly clear that this was absolutely the right thing to do. It couldn't have happened sooner. That agreement by itself was probably the single biggest foreign policy blunder of the United States in the last 100 years. The entire foundation of the JCPOA was absolutely, for instance, that one provision would have turned over all of their prior research. Well, Netanyahu's revelation of this huge treasure trove of secret documents, those were the documents that the Iranians were supposed to hand over to us in the beginning of the agreement, and yet here they are, turned up by Israeli intelligence. They despise America. America will always be the big Satan, and they're people without honor, they do not negotiate in good faith. To enter into any agreement with these people without at least a rigorous, inspection regime is the height of folly.
So, Scott, where to from here with Iran? What should the president do?
Well, I mean, the sanctions will take about different sanctions will take about 6 months to enter full effect. Companies, no new business is allowed to be concluded, and older businesses will be encouraged to wind down their operations. Now, Europe, France, Germany, the UK insist on continuing that, but they may be forced into a decision with the secondary effect of sanctions. They may not be. They may have to also break off with Iran because they run the risk of engaging in a disagreement with the United States, who they rely on far more economically. France and England, Airbus depends European business was really looking forward to exploiting the Iranian market. But the sanctions will further damage Iran, and the Europeans most likely will move to withdraw because of the consequences of to their relationships with the United States.
Hey, Scott, what I was so impressed with, getting back to Gina Haspel, was how calm, composed, and professional she was.
Exactly.
Maybe this question is too broad, but I don't think the American people sufficiently understand what our men and women in the CIA, especially our men and women on the front lines, go through. How would you describe the overall morale in the CIA these days?
Well, right. I mean, I've been retired now for several years now, but I imagine that the morale is a little bit hurting because of the disgraceful conduct of someone like former CIA Director John Brennan. He's an embarrassment to the intelligence community, or the perjury of DNI Clapper. These are really regrettable things because the hardworking men and women in the operations directorate, of which I was one, spend a considerable time in uncomfortable places overseas, living sometimes dangerous lives, and a lot of their work is unheralded, or will never, the successes will never reach the light of day because the operations I conducted against various countries, I really can never talk about, except in the most general terms. So these people really deserve our respect and admiration, and someone like Gina Haspel I particularly welcome because she's the first director since the mid-'70s who actually was in operation.
Yeah. So Scott, tell me about a different kind of an operation. You're running for Congress in Pennsylvania's 9th district. Describe the race for me.
Well, the race it's a new district. It was redistricted by the Democratic Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, making things difficult. This was done fairly recently. So we've had to scramble, as has everyone else. However, I'm running against, I'm in a primary Republican race, running against two opponents. One opponent in particular who is a real rhino, who basically masquerades as a Trump person when in fact he is a beneficiary of big government. And so he really, to me, he represents the worst elements of the swamp and exactly why I entered the race to begin with. However, I have a great deal of grassroots support. A lot of people identify with someone who is a non-politician who has a record of service to his country, and that's my strong suit. And so things are going very well, and we're going to find out once and for all on the 15th of May.
Well, and Scott, we found that out in primary day yesterday. A number of the outsider candidates were successful. Look, I was there. It's not an easy job. Give me a short answer. Why do you want to be a congressman?
Because I'm tired of seeing like the politics as usual that we see in Washington. I was always on the pointy end of the spear as far as foreign policy goes overseas. And people are in the district, and I think Americans everywhere are tired of politicians who seem to be owned by special interests who pander to the needs of themselves rather than the needs of the people. And so, with Trump was greatly supported in my area in rural Pennsylvania. And so my outsider status also resonates with them because people are just tired and they want to change. They're not impressed by the lack of support in Congress for the president's initiatives. They want the president's Make America Great policies to move forward, and they're frustrated at the lack of progress, by a Republican-dominated Congress. And so that's why I'm running.
Good luck. Yeah, good luck, and keep us posted. We'd love to get you on again. Keep going at it. Hey, thank you for joining us. Coming up, the reaction in Iran to what President Trump did yesterday. Don't go anywhere.